Joe Rogan. Tell me about that. That was a big one. Fantastic. He seems like a dude.
Yeah, I love Joe. Joe's great, man. He's a really good guy. He's what you see on screen is what you get with Joe. He is.
So how did that come about? Just out the success of your own show.
Yeah, so he watches a show. He watches a show. He really enjoys the show. We interviewed David Nutt. I don't know if you
Professor
know
Nutt.
Yeah, Professor Nutt, exactly. Fired from the Labour government for pointing out a statistical fact, which is ecstasy is less dangerous than horse riding.
There you go.
So he said, there you go, and they fired him, even though it's true. So we interviewed him. We had this incredible conversation with Professor David Nutt, who's a neuropharmacologist. And he's doing a lot of work now with psychedelics and how psychedelics can be used to treat conditions like PTSD, depression, anxiety, all of this stuff. And an amazing conversation. One of my favorite ever interviews, actually. Anyway, I was somewhere, I can't remember where I was. And then I got a little message on Twitter and it went, Joe Rogan's messaged you. And I went, all right, what's going on here? And he went, oh, great conversation with David Nutt. And I was just like, wow.
That's lovely.
Yeah. And then we just stayed in contact and he just said to me, look, when you're next in the States, come on the show.
Brilliant.
And he said the same thing to Constantine as well. So, yeah. And then we went and did it the first time. So much fun. It was brilliant. It's really surreal. It's really surreal. It must be like what footballers get when you pull on the shirt and you play for your local team. You go like, is this happening?
Yeah, but I guess, Francis, it's a bit like anything. It's a bit like he's seen the show, right? And you guys talk about all sorts of things, but predominantly you talk about the truth.
Yeah,
and I'm a bit like that. In probably not quite so outspoken, but for instance, there must be shit comedians out there. God knows there's shit musicians and DJs.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the guys that might actually say, actually, hang on a minute, that is a shit record. What is going on? And this summer, there's been more shit records than I can even think about. In fact, I've had my head in my hands going, what is going on? It's like this dumbing down of stuff. But everyone's got the fear. The fear, cancellation, the fear.
Yeah. And look, and that's the problem with the comedy industry and the music industry. I talk to a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, and they all talk about how worried they are that they're going to get cancelled. Because, if you say, if there's certain tripwires as an artist, particularly in industries that are liberal as ours or progressive or whatever word you want to use, if you say certain things, you're done. You're absolutely done. And how can you create great art and great music if you're not prepared to be at least a little bit transgressive, if you're not prepared to challenge, if you're not prepared to make people think? What do you think, and that, if you look at all the great artists of, the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that's what they did, a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, but we're also going back to a time, aren't we? We're also, if you stick your head above the parapet, people seem to relish going back. What would I call the witch hunt, isn't it? It's the witch hunt. Now, I don't know whether he's innocent or whatever, but we had this recent thing with Russell Brand, right? And it went on for about a week. You couldn't move for him. It was just this. We don't know whether he's innocent or guilty. That there wasn't any charges brought against him. I think he's being investigated, whatever. But very quickly, we moved on to something else. And it's like burn the witch. And it's just like, it seems like a really old-fashioned behavioural trait.
It does seem like a very old-fashioned behavioural trait that we've got into, in that we do seem to move from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. The thing that I found most interesting about the Brand case, actually, was how there was a member of Parliament called Caroline Dinenage, who I can't remember. Yeah, she took it upon herself to contact all of these big tech platforms and inquire and ask them why Russell's content was still being monetized. Now, the brutal truth is, apart from Russell and the people involved, the women involved, none of us know if he's guilty or innocent.
No.
None of us do. We don't.
No,
you
we
may
don't.
you may think you know, but the reality is we don't. So that being is read, but that is really sinister.
It's
really sinister.
I mean, I mean, you know, we were trying to make him out to be Jimmy Savile, weren't we? But it's a bit like various people. Who was the Radio 2 DJ? I've forgotten his name. They tried to do him for paedophilia and
David Lee Travis.
No. I mean, obviously Cliff Richard had the run-ins where they threw the book at them, and they were wrong. You know, they were wrong. You know, and it's like, well, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, exactly. But and by the way, like I said, we don't know if Russell is guilty or innocent.
No, we don't.
But,
we don't. But at the time, we didn't know. So and that's my point. And there's that behaviour where we find something that's wrong and we kill it straight away, or we think, and it's probably down to these things.
Yeah,
and I was wondering, you know, it's a pet hate for all us musicians when someone comes along and they start doing that. Has anyone done that during one of your gigs?
Yeah, people's, you know, a little bit of recording, and I try and be open and honest with people and go, look, I know what you're doing. You just want to record a bit so you can show your mate and go, look, I was at this gig or whatever else. If you want, we'll do a selfie afterwards. I can give you a selfie, and then that's great. I can't get you to do that in a gig because I'm trying out material. Some of it may not be ready. Probably it won't be ready.
Yeah.
You're going to take the bit out of context. If it finds its way onto the internet, it's then going to look dreadful. You know, I just can't have it. So please put the mobile phone away and just enjoy the gig.
Yeah.
You know? And if you explain it like that to people, they understand.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people get it, because you got to understand as well, you know, we live in this world and we go, oh, why don't they understand? Well, they don't live in your world, so they won't get it. You know, if you're an administrative assistant for Croydon Council, you're not going to know what it's like to DJ to thousands of people. You may think you do. You may have this idealized notion of what that means, but you don't actually know.
Mm.
So I think it's always important that we explain to people. Now, it's a little bit different with your job because you're playing tunes and they're just taking their phone out and they're recording it.
One of the things I noticed, though, Francis, was it wasn't so much that. It was always, you know, when I went clubbing in the early days, you know, we went to see, I don't know whether it was Danny Rampling or Oki or something, and we went to hear them play the records, and it's quite different now. It's quite different. Here's a picture, here's a video of me at the gig, rather than this is about the guy, you know. And again, it's kind of narcissism run riot, isn't it? It's kind of it's a bit strange. Don't quite understand how we got ourselves into this kind of thing. Well, I do, and again, I'm one of the few people that actually goes, just because you've got a few followers on Instagram or whatever, and that does not mean you are a DJ, and certainly doesn't mean you're a record producer. So there's that thing where all of a sudden, you know, because people are following me on this thing, I must be that plus that means I'm going to make money, you know, or you know, there's that weird thing where it's me centric, and I didn't grow up with any of that, and it's people, places, and things, I guess.
Yeah,
you know, it's weird, but you know, I'm not going to complain. Life could be a whole lot worse. I mean, are you worried about AI slipping into comedy?
Am I worried about AI slipping into comedy? No, mate, I'm not into comedy. I'm worried about. Do you know what? People go, "You're worried about AI," and the reality is, if I dug into it and I actually properly acquainted myself with the issues surrounding it, then yes, I would be. But there's only so many things you can be worried about at one time.
No.
There's either, you know, you go, you know, climate change. Is it the end of the world? And people go, why are you not upset about it? You go, I've got too much other crap on. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know.
Where's the truth as well?
People.
Where's the truth?
Yeah. Well, you know, AI. Could it be the end of the world? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know.
Did you
I
not
think there's
watch
only
Terminator?
Exactly.
I think
Exactly. It's a great documentary. But I've just come to this point where I go, I'm just one person. What is the point of overloading your brain to such an extent where you have to have an opinion on everything? I don't know anything about computers. Why do I have to have an opinion on AI? I know nothing about it. It was like during the pandemic. Well, what do you think about the vaccine? I don't know.
Not qualified.
I'm not a
Not
doctor.
qualified, mate.
It's interesting what you said. I love that about should we be worried about climate change? Should we be worried about AI? Should we be worried about AI? Not AI. A couple of letters anyway. Should we be worried about? At the end of the day, my major concern is I need to get new front tyres for my car.
Yeah.
That comes before those for me at the moment. And I'm not a climate. I don't know much about the climate. Yeah, I could probably read up on it, but like you say, they say lots of one people can make a difference. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's also as well, I sometimes think for a lot of the people, getting into politics is just a way of deflecting from the things that you need to do in your ordinary life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's easy.
I know. I mean, I could be imagining it, but everyone seems to be very angry. Everyone seems to have an agenda, and everyone seems to be a brand. Maybe I've got that wrong. I don't know.
No, I think you're spending too much time online.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
You need to get out, Nick. We've told you this before.
Speaking to a couple of people who make their business online.
Absolutely.